come to York by boat? And maybe do you wear a tunic? And have you got fleas?
It's a bit personal, that.
Well, how much do you know about the 10th century, Adam?
I know it's the Viking era.
It is the Viking era, and today we're going to visit the Jorvik Viking Centre. So when you get through the doors of the Jorvik Viking Centre, one of the main things you'll see is the glass floor.
In this room you can see preserved Viking timbers and many other things that were found from the Viking era.
And after we've seen all the collections on the glass floor, we'll enter the next stage of the Jorvik Viking Centre, which is the ride.
And the ride takes you all over York, exploring the markets, all down the fosse and onto Coppergate itself.
Until the 10th century, the buildings in the area of the Viking Age York were mainly single-storey structures. Games were also played amongst the children as well.
Although disease was rife in the 10th century, the Vikings were actually some of the healthiest people around. In fact, they had almost impeccable hygiene. People have found tweezers, razors, combs and even earbuds from the Viking sites. And it's believed that Vikings bathed generally once a week, much more than most of their other European counterparts.
Lots of beef, pork and mutton was eaten in the Jorvik times, and this may have been the reason for the major changes in our countryside around this era.
Clothes stalls were very popular in the markets around the Viking era and were often seen on places like Coppergate, where you could buy the latest trends of woolen tunics. One thing you couldn't buy on these stalls though were pointy helmets. Despite popular belief, it was never something the Vikings wore. It was more worn by German priests when they were doing ceremonial visits, but never by the Vikings themselves.
Music and storytelling was highly important in the Jorvik times, where they all enjoyed all sorts of tales of magic and bravery.
We also got a chance to witness an old woman crossing the road. We say old, she was only 46, but as the average life expectancy was 50, she was pretty old in the Viking times. So, we've just finished the ride, we found out about the homes and what they ate and what they fished.
And Coppergate as well, the Coppergate Centre.
All about the markets. So now we're going to try and find out a bit more about the archaeology.
The last bit of the museum shows more of the Viking finds, like this one.
Yep, it is what you're thinking, that is Viking poo. But it's a very important find because we're able to extract Viking DNA from it. And who knows, in the future we may be able to use it to recreate our very own Vikings.
So as we're going around the Jorvik Viking Centre, did you know that obviously the Vikings were all around England, but actually one of the largest populations is in Yorkshire itself? A feature of the museum which I loved was making a Viking coin.
What you do is you get a blank coin, which had been made out of silver at the time, put it on a die, put the sleeve over the top, put the other die on top of that, get your hammer, it's going to be a bang. There's your coin.
Wow.
So this coin is called a penninga, that's where you get the term penny from. And it could get you 4 barrels of beer, or 16 chickens, or 1 small pig.
How many beers do you reckon it would get me on the streets of York today?
Probably none, I'm afraid.
There's so much to discover here. There's even Viking pots and pans, there's skeletons, and there's a Viking sword.
So one thing I find particularly interesting is that they used to play games back in the Viking era. Not quite Monopoly, but you get things like a spinning top, you've got game boards, and even ice skating.
Do you find it's incredible that they actually still have these and they actually are intact?
And in a very, very good condition.
We also learnt while we was in the museum how important, of course, Coppergate was, and the name, the Viking name Coppergata, in Viking means cup maker and gata means street, so it actually translates to the street of cup makers. So we've just come out of the Jorvik Viking Centre and I tell you what, it was absolutely amazing.
It was really, really good. I've never been before. I'm not from York. It's the first time I've been in. It's fantastic. Definitely worth getting your ticket and going.
Absolutely, and you've got to check it out. It's definitely a must. If you're coming to York, it's definitely a must.
Favourite bit?
It has to be the ride.
The ride was so
It was amazing.
I got a coin. I managed to someone make a coin. That's probably my favourite bit.
You did. But yeah, if you do want to check out our videos and find out what we're doing and where we are and what we do have a Facebook and Twitter page.
It is Now Then Yorkshire, our Twitter.
Our Twitter is Now Yorkshire.
Be sure to check out the Jorvik Viking Centre as well. They're absolutely fantastic. Big thank you for letting us film there, and we will see you next week.